and regulations because that's one of my interests. You know, in the state legislature, I co-chair the Reg Reform Committee because from all my time with Helms and Dole and then serving in the Bush administration and then running for office, I'd hear that a lot from businesses. I wouldn't hear as much. People always complain about taxes and they always complain about spending, and those are two very important things. But the silent killer to business in this country are all the rules and regulations that you have to comply with. Because in essence, they're nothing more than a tax. It increases the cost of doing business. But it's that, you know, usually it's the silent killers that get you. It's not the ones that you see right in front of you. And so that's a real focus of mine. You know, you take a look at this administration, all the rules and regulations they're promulgating day in and day out. We don't even know what all they are, but they are eating away at our freedoms. And I think in Congress we need to rewrite the statute so that any new rule or regulation has to go before Congress for approval. We've got enough right now. You know, the fundamental, I think one of the problems we have in this country is we've had it so good for so long that we don't know what bad is.
We've never been hungry.
We've never been hungry. That's exactly right. You know, agriculture is a $75 billion industry. But I want to say something with you because when I thought about it this way, it really kind of woke me up. If you took all the rules and regulations that you have in place today and you go back to 1950, we'd be a third-rate nation. You wouldn't be able to do anything. All those things that we have today, the businesses that we have today, the interstate highway system, the roads and bridges that we, enjoy to get to and here to there, you wouldn't be able to do any of it. You wouldn't be able to do any of it because of a snail that nobody ever heard of, or a rat that nobody ever heard of, or, the minnow. The poor folks in California, they can't even get water to their farms because of the minnow. You know, a lot of people talk about the Endangered Species Act. How many endangered species have come and gone that humanity has never even known? You know? So my point in saying all this, we've got to readjust our thinking in this country, and the left wing of this country has driven us this path. We've got to readjust our thinking as individual citizens and recognize that what we have here is, not to be taken for granted. We can lose it just like that. And we're on the path to lose it just like that, absent some major change. And it's really quite simple. Cut spending, less government spending and lower taxes create jobs. That's just the fundamental truth. And then some people look at me kind of with their eyes glazed over, and I say, all right, let me explain it this way. Every dollar that you take from the private sector is one less dollar that business owner has to invest in their business, to grow their business. And if you can't grow your business and make a profit, guess what? You can't hire anybody. Profit's not a bad thing. If you don't have profits, you can't hire. And I say that, and they kind of wake up and say, all right. But you know what the real problem we have in this country? Our education system is sorry. Because people like me and others who have to sit and explain these basic things, this is something we shouldn't have to do. The American people should know all this automatically. And the only reason why these 30-second ads work are because people believe what they're told without thinking through it. That's the biggest problem we have in this country is our education system. And we've got to recognize that what we have, we can lose just like that if we don't turn it around quick. Other questions?
I got one. Where are you on entitlement reform? That's my big thing. I just think that's the biggest problem in this country.
I'm glad you mentioned that.
I'm not for taking grandmama off for food stamps, but I'm taking grandson off for standing around drinking beer all day long.
Well, if you work, you ought to be better off than if you don't work. That's just a fundamental truth. I'm glad you mentioned entitlements. Social Security, Medicare, of course you've got welfare as well. But I want to talk about Social Security and Medicare a little bit because you can't address spending in the budget without talking about those two programs because that's about half of the federal budget. You may see the TV ads that are running now, talking about how it's, you know, the Rouzer plan, was whichever district they're going in after whoever's running, they say it's their plan too, you know, to cut Medicare. There's a big difference between taking money out of the program like they did with Obamacare, where they took $700 billion out of Medicare to help fund Obamacare. There's a big difference between taking money out of the program and reforming a program to create for competition and transparency to drive down costs. That's what the Ryan budget proposal does, is it reforms those programs to drive down costs so that they don't cost as much, so that health care will not cost as much. That's a completely different thing than taking the money right out. And they say, oh, we're not taking it out from the beneficiaries, you know, the elderly. No, they're socking it to the doctors, giving them a lower reimbursement rate. You know, how many seniors do you know that are going to doctors now? They moved into North Carolina and they can't find anybody that will take Medicare. And they can't find a doctor that will take it. Well, the reason why they don't want to take it is they don't get enough reimbursement to keep the lights on. So you're just, you know, they say, oh, they're not hurting Medicare, you know, with taking the $700 billion out of it to put into Obamacare. Well, actually, they really are. So they're taking choices away from the seniors who need it. And so I really applaud Romney for choosing Paul Ryan as his running mate, because I think it shows that he knows that we've got to deal with these big issues head on. And of all the common sense in Washington D.C., Paul Ryan probably got 95% of it. And so that's why I'm excited about it. But we've got to preserve and save those programs for the future. And in order to do that, we've got to reform them so that we drive costs down. And you drive costs down by creating competition. You drive costs down by creating transparency. We've got to repeal Obamacare and replace it with free market-oriented solutions. Let the realtors and the home builders pool their money together so they can get an insurance product at a lower price. Let the individuals out there set aside money in a tax-deferred account to pay for the colds and the knickknacks and other things that you go to the doctor for. You know, the doctor's office is about the only place you go where there's no price list. When you walk in that doctor's office and when you walk out, you don't know what you've spent. And I can attest to that because I went and I had some allergy tests done, had a blood test and had a skin test. And it turned out, by the way, I was severely allergic to grass and dust. No wonder I've always felt bad all my life. But anyway, I got the bill, though, and it was an $8,000 bill. And I said, my gosh, I said, all it was a simple blood test. And which I know how this works. You know, they bill you this high figure, and then they go through their negotiation with the insurance companies and all, and then, you know, at the end of the day, you, the patient, don't end up costing that much. Doesn't end up costing that much. But my point is, if there was a price list and I knew what it was going to cost to get the blood test and the skin test and everything else, you know, I'd be making some rational decisions based on that. That's one of the reasons why costs in healthcare, you know, are just spiraling completely out of control, is there's no price list for anybody to look at. The doctors don't even know how much it is to do an MRI in their hospital versus another hospital versus somewhere else. And so that's what I'm talking about when I talk about, you know, some free market competitive solutions in order to, so that we can replace when we repeal Obamacare. Those are the type of things we need to do to help drive down the cost of health care. So that's how you're going to help preserve Medicare for the future, is drive down the cost in health care. Plus restructuring Medicare a little bit, and the same thing's going to need to be done for Social Security. Here's one other thing. You don't do anything with Medicare in the next few years, it goes bankrupt in 2012, notwithstanding the $700 billion that the Congress pulled from Medicare to fund Obamacare. But those we've got to deal with those entitlement programs head on. We can't just kick the can down the road. Any other questions?
What do you think of Ryan's plan? Sounds pretty good to me.
Well, I think it's pretty good. I don't know all the details of it, but in essence, if you're 55 and older, Medicare stays exactly the same. If you're 55 and younger, you have some options and some choices that you can make based on